Our casual workforce ranges between about 300 and 330 staff, and there's no doubt that it will impact upon some of those.
We need it in Cessnock because we need opportunities for people to be employed. We also need to make people aware that there are jobs in our community that are having difficulty being filled.
When Nick Murger broke Andrew Durante's leg in the first ever clash between the Jets and Mariners, the rivalry was never going to be friendly. Newcastle's grand final win only added fuel to that fire. Tomorrow afternoon, the Jets will unveil this banner, reminding the Central Coast about its lack of big game success. Jobe Wheelhouse has been red and blue since the start.
I always get myself up for the Central Coast games, whether it's here or down there. So yeah, I'd definitely say there's a little bit more to it than just your normal club game.
Emile Heskey has played in some of the world's biggest derbies, including Liverpool versus Everton.
Derbies are big, not only for the players but for the whole town and the cities. So yeah, looking forward to everyone.
On the injury front, Scott Neville is a long shot to overcome a groin complaint, while the news is much better for Ruben Zadkovic. Ben Kennedy will be on light duties for 2 weeks, with the club hoping he can avoid knee surgery. Mark Birighitti looks likely to earn an immediate shot at redemption following his send-off against Adelaide. The captain is confident Birighitti will put round one behind him.
He's a really good keeper. He's, played at a really high level, and I don't think that'll come into his mind. But yeah, look, well, there's plenty of senior boys around the group that can pull him aside and talk to him if need be.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. It's spelled differently, but Kurt Fearnley feels right at home on the Fernley track. In fact, it's part of the reason he settled in Newcastle.
Someone come up to me and goes, "Hey, I heard a rumour that the track was named after you, but you were too humble to have it actually spelt the right way." And I love that.
This Sunday, he'll be joined by fellow London Paralympian Jake Lappin for the inaugural Fernley 15. More than 850 people will take part, but late withdrawals have seen the wheelchair race reduced to 2. Jake has a simple plan.
Pretty much just going to try and sit on his giraffe the whole way and then see how it goes.
Unlike most of his races, Kurt will have time to take it all in.
It's not about going hell's bells the whole way. It's about enjoying the track, enjoying the day and being part of the atmosphere that's the Fernley 15.
At 20, Lappin is looking to transition into long-distance events following a frustrating effort in London.
It wasn't too good. It was all right. I got some more experience and just worked out things I've got to do for next time, like being a bit more aggressive and just things like that. So it wasn't too flash, but hopefully next time will be a bit better.
The 15 will be the final race for Fernley before he focuses on New York and winning marathon number 5 in the Big Apple.
Hopefully this is the year, and it'd be nice to finish 2012 on a really kind of positive note.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
There's a first time for everything, and this could well have been Dungog's first major traffic jam. The Gentlemen of the Road Music Festival drawing in thousands. While there's several big-name international acts performing, there was only one band on most people's mind.
Mumford & Sons.
Mumford & Sons.
The festival is a sellout, and as a result, Dungog's businesses are thriving.
Everyone's spending money. That's what we need.
What's the biggest seller for today?
Sunscreen, sun hats, sunglasses.
And what do you think they'll be buying tomorrow?
Probably lots of Panadol.
With the temperature well into the 30s and the festival's main act still several hours away, some of the festival goers took the opportunity to freshen up.
It's probably the biggest thing to happen in Dungog in ever.
Up until now, Dungog's main draw card has been its film festival. Last year, it attracted close to 10,000 people over the week-long event. Today, there were more than 12,000, showing the attempt to establish Dungog as a cultural mecca is working.
Dungog's had to reinvent itself, and I mean this is part of our reinvention.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
We've had a good solid sort of 6 weeks together, and the imports have come in and they've fitted in really well, and I think will be a surprise to most teams. The rest of us sort of come together nicely, and we know each other's games, and I think that'll be put us in good stead for the future.
She admits her life away from lawn bowls is outstanding. Unfortunately, Natasha Van Eldick's performances on the green this year haven't lived up to her high expectations.
Everything seems to be going well, but at times you can't win everything. But I'm getting in there, I'm giving it my best shot.
Judging by today's effort, she's not far off the mark. The 22-year-old has been making regular trips to Adelaide to prepare for the biggest event of her life. When the World Championships were held 4 years ago, Van Eldick had never dreamed about national selection. Now she's right at home in the green and gold.
We're just basically all family now. When we go away for long periods of time, we all get along like a house on fire.
Always happy to help out at her home club, recently Natasha was on a mission to save the game in Alice Springs.
Their only bowling green in a population of 30,000 was at the risk of closing, which was a little bit sad. So we went over there to do a bit of advertisement for them to hopefully get the green up and running again.
Taylor Cadman is a fighter. Last year, the 13-year-old was hit by a car while crossing Nelson Bay Road near Bayway Village after being dropped off by her school bus. The accident sparked outrage across the community. Today, residents held a fundraiser in her honour, and the donations came in thick and fast. The money will be spent on a specially designed treadmill for Taylor.
It'll help her to get along walking quicker if she does actually get to walk again.
Emotions are still running high over pedestrian safety along the busy road. Following Taylor's accident, the Roads and Maritime Services spent $250,000 on safety upgrades, including this U-turn bay. But Taylor's mum says it's not good enough.
I would have rather the crossing or traffic lights actually put in there, because that's really still not stopping any buses or anything from stopping out the front and anyone getting off and walking across the road.
Nelson Bay Road will eventually be 4 lanes through there. So, we have to do something on the big scale in the future.
Meanwhile, while Taylor's life has changed forever, she's still just like any other teenage girl.
Her one thing is she wants to get on the news and tell everyone she wants to meet Justin Bieber.
And there's no doubt this small community with a big heart will do everything they can to get her there. Stephanie Jeans, NBN News.
The money we raise here in the Hunter will be used for programs in the Hunter to support families with Down syndrome.
Ruben Zadkovic set the tone for another fiery F3 derby. The Mariners were fuming again when Emil Heskey was awarded a penalty. Ryan Griffiths on target from the spot. Returning from suspension, Mark Birighitti was doing plenty to keep the Mariners at bay. The game threatened to boil over, Zadkovic lucky not to see red. James Virgili caused nightmares for Central Coast defenders. His run to set up Heskey put Newcastle 2 goals in front. But the Mariners weren't going away, pulling one back with 20 to play. Craig Goodwin almost restored the Jets' advantage, while Birighitti was taking no prisoners. In the 6th minute of stoppage time, the visitors thought they'd stolen a point. But it simply wasn't the Mariners' day. Only 2 competitors lined up for the wheelchair race, but Kurt Fearnley was determined to drag fellow Paralympian Jake Lappin along for the ride. More than 900 people signed up for the 15k run, Martin Dent the headline act. The Olympian quickly set the pace. Up ahead, Fearnley had left Lappin lingering, allowing him plenty of time to enjoy this unique setting. He's now hoping to encourage more rivals to take part.
Be nice to have a nice little sprint finish here with the last couple of hundred along the Fearnley track. So beautiful event, and I can't wait to do it again next year.
Still hurting from his Olympic campaign, Dent was a class above this field. The 15Ks proved to be a walk in the park for the marathon runner, finishing in 46 minutes.
I'd like to run a bit quicker when I'm in proper shape, still recovering a little bit from the Olympic marathon. So, come back here and try to run a minute or so quicker.
Newcastle University student Celia Sullivan was even more impressive to win the women's race, as the Fearnley 15 put itself on the athletic calendar.
Give the event the big thumbs up.
Yes, and I'll be here again next year. Big thumbs up.
The day 40 years of aluminium production came to an end.
Sad to see the plant end up in the situation it's in.
It was a far cry from a full house on the Curry Smelter's final day of operations. The car park deserted. Workers have been preparing for this for months. Hydro announced the closure of the plant in May, arguing it was no longer financially viable.
We're putting the plant into a mothball mode, I guess in some hope that those situations turn around.
More than 400 Hunter jobs gone. 145 of those employees have found work.
I'm staying as an electrician on the site for the care and maintenance team.
Are you one of the lucky ones?
I think so at this stage.
But most haven't been so fortunate. 276 former employees are still looking for work, and many are worried a downturn in the mining industry will worsen their chances.
They were finding work quite readily, and then in the last sort of month or so we've seen that slow down quite significantly.
Definitely devastating for me in the fact that I have 8 children and 7 at home under 16, and I didn't think this would happen. And I've been here 27 years and I got a fairly good redundancy, but we're eating into it like crazy.
Hydro says the land could eventually lend itself to commercial development, but others hope that one day the site will be returned to its former glory. Never say never?
Yeah, that's the attitude that we're taking.
Stephanie Jeans, NBN News.
For many here, it's been a long wait. These faces now filled with hope. Altogether, 10,000 people in the Hunter qualify for what's been called the solution. But the National Disability Insurance Scheme has left many with questions.
Yes, it is a complex piece of work, but we are certainly doing it. We need an NDIS because the current system simply isn't working.
With a $330 million trial set to be rolled out in the Hunter from next July, Melanie Shager is hoping she'll be one of the initial recipients. Do you think there's going to be a lot of heartbreak here?
Absolutely.
The Brodies are among those who believe the government's pockets won't be deep enough. Their son Ben lives in an aged care home.
I don't like him in an aged care facility, but we have no choice. There is no place for people like Ben.
That's what the agency will be doing when they come here in a couple of weeks' time, to look at what is available, what the need is, and then make some decisions about what may be required.
There should be no excuse for leaving anybody behind.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
When it comes to appearances, some say the wine country capital needs a little work.
Do you think Cessnock needs a bit of a spruce up?
Definitely, yes, it definitely does.
Council thinks so too, unveiling plans to upgrade the CBD.
It looks beautiful now, we're just going to improve it.
The master plan would see Cessnock transformed to become more pedestrian and cyclist friendly. Vincent Street would be made over and historic buildings refurbished, all in a bid to lure more visitors.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good because it has been pretty quiet up here.
We have a problem at the moment where people tend to drive straight through Vincent Street and go to the vineyards. So we need something here in the main street which will make those people stop.
And Cessnock's less than attractive open stormwater drains would also get a new look.
That'll require some cooperation with Hunter Water.
But the grand plans don't have everyone convinced.
Council can have a lot of plans, but without the money to actually do it, they're just plans.
Well, that's the big question. We will be looking for some income out of council's funds, but we'll also be looking for support from higher levels of government.
The public will be able to comment on the master plan through Council's website from Wednesday. Stephanie Jeans, NBN News.
It was the kind of run James Virgili produced time and time again in the NBN State League. This time it set up a former England international.
That's what he's capable of doing, so hopefully he can do that on a consistent basis, and we've got a star in the making.
Having hounded Virgili to lift his game in the pre-season, the coach was more than happy.
It was good to see him put in a performance like that. Another young fellow, young Newcastle boy coming through, and he's going to derive a lot of confidence from that as well.
Virgili is now simply hoping to cement his starting spot after watching most games from the sideline last season.
I think I might have only got about 4 games off the bench, and not really. Gary's always told me that he likes me, and I knew that I'd get my chance, and hopefully I'll keep taking it.
Josh Mitchell, meanwhile, is now an established member of the Jets' defence. Against the Mariners, this tackle in the second half caused a stir in the commentary box. Mitchell says he'd do it again if necessary.
It was a bad foul at the time, but those fouls have to be done. I wouldn't call it anti-football, but of course he's allowed to, and fair play to him.
Meanwhile, Ben Kennedy sat out today's session because of his ongoing knee complaint, with Mark Birighitti likely to remain in goal for Friday's clash with Victory. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It was a great day, very tough course, and we worked hard on the bike.
Some of these machines should be in a museum, but their owners would rather see them chewing up dirt than gathering dust. More than 80 bikes were on show in the Mr Vintage motocross event. Wollongong's Dean Burt enjoyed rare air on his way to the pre-80s and pre-90s titles. Organisers now have plans to attract high-profile riders next year. From horsepower to paddle power, the Newcastle Hunter Dragon Boat Club hosted its annual regatta. 15 teams, including entries from Dubbo and Gosford, did battle with the aim of getting more people involved in the sport. And junior rugby officials say they're blown away by the massive turnout at trials for Hunter representative sides. More than 300 players tried their luck, hoping to earn a place in the country titles next year. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It's supposed to be the solution to Newcastle's critical shortage of A-grade office space, but the Honeysuckle Central site still sits idle.
It would be a great shame to have that fall to fallow if this doesn't come off.
The Hunter Development Corporation says Nathan Tinkler's property group BuildDev owes it millions of dollars for stage 1 and 2 of the project. The initial payment deadline in January passed. Almost 10 months on, the company's just been granted its third extension.
We have been granting them extensions on conditions and we've been compensated for that, but it can't go on forever.
BuildDev now has until early December to pay, or it could lose the project altogether.
If nothing happens and nothing is produced, well, we'll get the site back and the corporation will be considering what its options are is to put the site back out to the market.
The $55 million development is designed to provide 20,000 square metres of commercial office space. Back in July, BuildDev said it hoped stage 1 would be complete by the end of next year.
When contacted today, BuildDev refused to answer our questions or to provide NBN with a written statement.
Stephanie Jeans, NBN News.
Well, I was inside the building at the time and I heard a crash and a thud, thinking there'd been a car accident out the front of the store, and walked outside and to my amazement saw a two-seater settee that had lying alongside the car and smashed in the condition that it's in behind us.
It began as a tiny family business more than 50 years ago.
It was started by our father and mum, and they were in the back of a shed painting trucks.
But today, Hi-Vis in Newcastle has blossomed into a successful signage company. Chances are you drive past one of its products every day.
Wherever you go, you generally see one of our signs.
Hi-Vis specialises in road and safety signs, each crafted with the help of some heavy machinery. The company has been named the Hunter's Manufacturer of the Year.
It's like winning the Oscar for manufacturing. It's a great feeling.
Simon Watson credits the achievement to a strong foundation.
You can't run a company and get success like we've got without a great team, and we have a wonderful staff here. You know, of our 60 people, 20 have been with us more than 10 years.
But he admits it's not all smooth sailing. Tough times for the manufacturing industry and overseas competition is keeping the company on its toes.
A lot of, your stop signs and your giveaways, that's a product that unfortunately we're starting to see coming in from overseas. So, but we just keep competing.
Stephanie Jeans, NBN News.
You can't have everything in life. You take what few you can and you enjoy it.
Saves like this one show Eliza Campbell is up to the challenge of filling the void left by Matilda, Melissa Barbieri.
Yeah, she was a great goalie and hopefully I can fill in the shoes.
The Tweedheads junior was unable to secure a start with the Brisbane Roar, but Jets coaching staff jumped at the opportunity to sign the Australian under-17 rep.
She was recommended by Jeff Hopkins, the Brisbane coach, at this point in time. Obviously didn't have a spot for her, but keepers are pretty rare at the moment, and we took what we saw.
An apprentice chef, Campbell has settled into her role of cleaning up at the back for the Jets.
Decided to come to Newcastle because they gave me an offer straight away.
While the 17-year-old has dreams of one day representing her country at senior level, her immediate challenge is this weekend's match against defending premiers, Canberra.
I think she'll go great. Debut on the weekend was good. Confident again, brave, very brave, and has a personality about her that's only going to get better the older she gets.
Meanwhile, 5 Jets have been selected in the young Socceroos side for next month's Asian Championships in the United Arab Emirates. Bart Jack Duncan, Adam Taggart, Josh Brillante, Mitch Oxborough and Connor Chapman are all still available for Friday night's match against the Melbourne Victory. Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
You've got a situation there where Maitland have 7 or 8 affiliate clubs at the moment. So, whether there's capacity up that way to formulate another club, that's probably an area to certainly be explored.
When the door of opportunity first opened, no one thought this food rescue mission would end up here. This was the scene of pickup number 1. And today, the volunteers at Oz Harvest Newcastle delivered meal number 1 million.
It's a lot of food.
The charity collects food from 35 donors, including some of our biggest supermarkets that would otherwise go to waste. It then goes to those who feed the needy.
We drop the food off to them and we actually sit with them and help them prepare meals.
Or it comes pre-made in the first place.
Later on today I'll be going to Noah's to pick up some cooked food from a convention I've had, and they'll just give it to us and we straight away give it to one of the charities which would be suitable for them.
Oz Harvest was founded 8 years ago by Sydney event organiser Ronnie Carr.
It costs Oz Harvest less than $1 to deliver a meal. So for us to deliver 250,000 meals, we're going to need $250,000. I don't need it tonight. I do need it soon.
And since that plea in 2010, Newcastle and 3 other cities have jumped on board. Hunter restaurateur Neil Slater among the first to open his chequebook.
It just shows what a great need there is in our community. You know, we think everyone's doing very well, but clearly there are 1 million people who needed feeding in the last 2.5 years.
And at last count, more than 4 tonnes of food is now collected every week.
It's so simple, yet it's doing such a big job. And it's just a winner as far as I'm concerned. It's great.
Oz Harvest so successful, Meal 2 million could be just around the corner, with the charity already planning a move across the Hunter Valley and eventually nationwide. Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Dawn came, and so did police. Following a 3-month investigation, detectives from Strike Force Nevada arrested 2 men in early raids this morning. 35-year-old Grant Welsh at a property in Rutherford and 40-year-old Andrew Pickering at Ashtonfield. Both men were charged over the shooting of Maitland Gladiators president Frank Vandercroft. The 56-year-old was riding his motorbike on Wine Country Drive at North Rothbury on July 22nd when he was shot.
He was in full colours, being a member of an outlaw motorcycle gang.
Police say the 2 men are former members of the Gladiators. And as a result of the arrests, police also rolled out several search warrants this morning.
And the seizure of firearms, a quantity of ammunition and some explosives.
Welsh appeared before Cessnock Local Court. His matter was adjourned until Wednesday at Newcastle Local Court. Pickering faced Raymond Terrace Local Court. He'll appear on the 19th of December. Both men did not apply for bail. Amy Ziniak, NBN News.
It's almost a year to the day since one of Eraring plant's transformers burst into flames, sending some of the 8,000 litres of oil fuelling the blaze into Lake Macquarie.
It was an internal fault. There is still an inquiry going in that regard, the actual cause of failure. We have experts from all over the world actually determining what is the actual nature of that failure.
The cost of the drama was tipped to be in the vicinity of $20 million, but the generator says households won't be footing the bill.
Those numbers that are being quoted have to do with the amount of lost generation that Eraring had because of the failure. So the actual cost of the actual failure is basically covered through insurance anyway.
Recent power price hikes are being blamed on ailing infrastructure and the need for systems to cope with peak usage on sweltering summer days. But with appliances and homes becoming increasingly energy efficient, providers are seeing some surprising statistics. According to the Australian Energy Market Operator, national power consumption actually fell 2.4% last financial year, a level of decline not seen for more than a decade. Kath Landers, NBN News.
And we don't feel that anybody's got a right, you know, to rename our suburb. It's like walking up here and saying we're going to rename your dog.
Last year, it disappeared just as quickly as it arrived.
This is definitely a hot day today.
We saw our coolest and wettest summer for more than 40 years.
What summer? It's barely been any sun.
But this time around, Mother Nature was expected to more than make up for it. Last June, the Weather Bureau predicted she'd turn up the heat, warning of potential drought conditions like those of the 1990s.
Farmers might like droughts, but painters love them. So.
The current dry spell doing little to hose down the threat. What started as average rainfall quickly disappeared. There were just 6 wet days to start spring, while so far in October, 2 millimetres in one day is the highest total, 5.8 overall.
Don't know about the record books, but it's certainly been amazingly dry and the numbers have dropped off dramatically.
Our dam levels have gone from capacity to around 91% on average, and others have been hit hard as well. Charlestown Golf Club hasn't seen it like this in more than 5 years.
There's about another 2 metres left, and if we don't get any rain until Christmas, we could be in some trouble.
But perhaps relief is in sight. Today, the Bureau of Meteorology downgraded its long-term forecast, saying the El Niño has surprisingly retreated and that warm waters to Australia's northeast won't trigger a prolonged dry spell.
So it does look like a more average kind of summer with more average kind of summer rainfalls.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
I think the show association spoke about that was costing them tens of thousands of dollars because of people not being there. But when you do the multiplier effect on the businesses that it embraces in the area, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Just to try and help the hospital out, make life a little bit more enjoyable for the kids while they're in there, pass their time and take their mind off what they're in there for.
Taylor Regan's the reigning Ray Bart's medalist, but Gary Van Egmond has given every indication he will likely make way for young Socceroo Josh Brillante this week.
As a fullback, he probably offers a little bit more than Taylor. He's a little bit more settled in that area.
Regan isn't the only player in line for a change.
Ben Kanarowski's probably in that boat as well. So it's good from our point of view that there's good competition for places.
And with both James Brown and Scott Neville due to return next week, competition for spots is heating up. But it's not just the players coming back from injury who are causing selection headaches. With keeper Jack Duncan leaving for young Socceroo duty next week, Van Egmond is sweating on the fitness of Ben Kennedy.
We'll know in the next day or two whether that's going to be a case that we can soldier him through or he needs to get an op.
While Ruben Zadkovic's tackling style has been the subject of debate, Van Egmond is adamant he doesn't need to rein in the midfielder.
Rather than looking to him to suppress him, we need to still encourage him to be that type of player, but to try and do it in a more controlled manner.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News. After almost 2 hours of grueling racing, crossing the finish line never felt so good.
Once I saw that finish line and I hit the lead, all pain went away, and it just came in with excitement.
Today, Aaron Royal was back where it all began, his home track at Wallsend. His victory at the World Titles in Auckland, the first big step in a long journey.
2016's my goal. There's a lot of stuff between now and then, but I guess the preparation for that starts now.
Royal's already shown he's prepared to take that preparation to the extreme.
I was living in an altitude tent that was set up at my house. It was set at around about 3,000 metres, and I was also doing a lot of work up at Enswiss in Homebush in an altitude chamber.
While Maitland's Brendan Sexton has been a source of inspiration for Royal throughout his career, Royal is now having a similar influence on another Newcastle triathlete. Shane Ilgen won gold at the Youth Games in Mooloolaba earlier this year. These photos of Royal on his wall, a reminder of whose path he intends to follow.
I look forward to getting into N-Swiss in the future.
Got to have those guys that people look up to, and hopefully for Shane, he looks up to people like myself and Brendan.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
The Hunter Economic Zone at Curry was once touted as the state's biggest job site, with predictions it would employ around 10,000 people. But its potential faded 2 years ago, owing lenders almost $100 million. So when the state government floated the idea of a special economic zoning last year, the region's business sector saw an opportunity.
A special economic zone in this context was a location that warranted some tax breaks, so tax relief, and some special financing incentives for businesses and investors.
The Property Council put forward a Hunter location.
Really from north of the Port of Newcastle up to Newcastle Airport. That is a very high potential economic area.
But the O'Farrell government's now decided the idea isn't feasible, not just for Newcastle, but for the state.
We think that's a fairly disappointing outcome, and we're calling on government at a state and local level to find alternative ways to achieve the same outcome.
I hope there will be a special economic zone in the future. That will give us a real competitive advantage against other regions in Australia for getting investment.
Kath Landers, NBN News.
Within 15 minutes of opening, 500 people were through the doors. More than 60 businesses and training providers were on hand to offer help down the path to employment.
I work as an AIN and I've injured my shoulder and my neck, and I am looking to be retrained in other positions.
And it's really good to have like personal contact with it. I think it makes a difference.
Federal Human Services Minister Kim Carr and member for Shortland Jill Hall were also chipping in.
Full-time, white collar, blue collar, all different skill levels. This is a genuine opportunity for people to get quality jobs, to get good incomes, and to ensure that they're part of the growing success story of this region.
600 jobs, most jobs that have been available at any Jobs Expo throughout the nation.
And a diverse range. There was even a position for a helicopter pilot. On hand today to represent State MP Andrew Cornwall, John Church is also looking for a new role. He's expected to be endorsed as the Liberal candidate for Shortland tomorrow.
We have lots of part-time and casual workers, and that's very hard for people then to commit to car loans and home loans if they don't have full-time work. But this is a great initiative, and it goes a long way in making sure that people can find those important full-time jobs.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Faye Hawley lost her son 6 years ago.
I didn't know that he had mental illness until he'd sadly taken his own life.
She believes the silence surrounding suicide is part of the reason it continues to claim lives.
So Darren has spoke about every day, and he does his little bit for suicide prevention.
Today, the community gathered for Wesley Mission's annual Life Force Memorial Service.
It gives them the opportunity to know they're not alone.
The media generally doesn't report on individual suicide cases, so their prevalence may appear understated. In 2010, 2,300 Australians took their own lives. That's almost double the number of people killed on the nation's roads.
When we get to Christmas, we talk about the number of deaths on the road. Suicide is happening all the time.
Sadly, it often takes a high-profile death like that of Alan Bond's wife, Diana Bliss, to reveal its true extent. Today, her brother Peter revealed his own battle with depression and the importance of reaching out.
At the lowest moment of my life, when I had seriously contemplated ending it, I made 2 phone calls that changed my life and saved it. I called the 24-hour Lifeline hotline, and I also called my big sister.
Kath Landers, NBN News.
Squeals and smiles, mission accomplished. The $27,000 cost of the Liberty Swing was covered by Port Waratah Coal Services. Variety, the children's charity, chipped in another $15,000 for its installation, much to the delight of staff and students at Newcastle Middle School.
With the movement of the swing, their stomach coming up and their excitement and the look on their faces, and it's movement which children in wheelchairs that don't get.
The $45,000 special needs playground, including climbing equipment and a slide, was donated by the Newcastle Permanent's Charitable Foundation.
It gets to you, you see the look on their faces and you realise that they've never had that opportunity.
And it's not just about having fun.
Being able to develop sense of balance, being able to share, wait, take turns.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
These 2 little girls have more in common than meets the eye. Born 3 years apart on the same date, both with cleft palates. They share the same name, Piper, and it doesn't stop there. They also have the same surname, Butcher. Since birth, the 2 girls, one from West Wallsend, the other from Manila near Tamworth, have been under the care of Dr. Larry Roddick at the John Hunter Children's Hospital. Today, he scheduled their appointments together, just so they could meet for the first time.
It was ironic because we thought we were giving her a really original name, but there was one that was here 3 years earlier, exactly the same.
Yeah, and to have the same birth date and to have, the Piper L. Butcher, we couldn't wait to meet him.
So exciting. We've always known, and Dr. Roddick said that he would always try to get us together.
But we were just sitting in the waiting room today and just had no idea they were here at all.
When Dr. Roddy came in and said the two pipers, we all just stood up and it was like, so, wow.
8-year-old Piper has had 3 major operations.
The first one was pretty big, and when it was over, I just felt normal. I felt that I was a normal person and I felt great.
Now she is thriving.
Her speech is excellent. She's doing exceptionally well at school, and no one at school knows, which is,
It's fabulous.
Both of them are speaking normally. You wouldn't know on the end of the phone that either of them had had a cleft, and that's what we want to do.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Some are enormous panoramas, most are abstract landscapes. Angus Nivison's largest work stretches 6.5 metres long. It's titled Remembering Rain and took out the Wynne Prize, Australia's premier landscape painting award.
And it's all about the longing for rain. So it was painted during a very long drought when everybody had forgotten what rain was.
The subject not surprising, given he spent his life at Walker near Armidale.
Everything I do references where I live. Because I'm from the land, from the country, I'm a regional artist, I live up in the New England Tablelands, it very much represents the landscape within which I live.
Angus was a farmer for many years, part of a family of graziers, but living a double life as an artist. Now he's a painter full-time, fulfilling a childhood dream.
I knew that it felt right when I was painting things, and it's pathological in a way. You know, if I'm not painting, I'm not particularly nice to be around. It keeps me normal.
Also an Archibald finalist, his work is hung in galleries throughout Australia and overseas, proving regional artists can be as successful as their city counterparts. Summer Rain is among 3 of his works owned by Newcastle Region Art Gallery.
Artists from the regions can make immense traction in the city and gain a national or international following and still remain true to their foundations and their roots as well.
According to Angus, he's not a painter of scenes, but one of emotion and the human condition with roots in landscape.
He has a really, really mystical way of depicting the Australian landscape, and I think that's something that very much connects with the history of landscape in the Newcastle Art Gallery collection as well.
The exhibition, titled Angus Nivison, A Survey, has already been shown at the Tamworth Regional Gallery. It's now on exhibition here at the University of Newcastle Gallery before moving to Sydney.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
He's already played a handful of A-League games for his former club, Gold Coast United. But his first for the Jets holds a special place for Josh Brillante, a chance to play with an idol.
Emil Heskey, because given what he's been doing overseas in the EPL and playing for his country, I think to play with him is just an honour.
The young Socceroo earning plenty of praise from his peers.
He seems to know his role really well. Intelligent players like that can come in and do a job, no problem.
Forced to sit out training earlier in the week, Ryan Griffiths' injury is raising little concern with his coach.
Yeah, he hurt his neck. I'm not too sure. He needs maybe a tontine pillow or something.
It's pretty good today. I trained full session, so a little bit stiff, but there's no problem there.
Coming off a win over Adelaide, the unbalanced victory will prove a difficult task.
They're unusual. They definitely have a good strike force. We know that. They've proven it in the past, those type of players. Flores and Archie are always dangerous.
The victory announced their intent to improve on a poor record at Hunter Stadium, with Ange Postecoglou slotting new goalkeeper Nathan Coe straight into the starting lineup. Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
It's a big ask against the leading premiers, but I think we'll take what we got out of last week and take it to them for the 3 points at home. The young girls sort of look to us for experience, but in saying that, those girls sort of bring a lot of positives to the team as well.
From the plush surroundings of the Chinese Masters to the close comfort of Shortland waters, today, Aaron Townsend was in familiar territory
It's a golf course that I played a lot as a kid, so I do have a good recollection of the place and a lot of fond memories of playing junior events here.
It's been a breakthrough year for the 31-year-old. First, a berth in the British Open. Then, third place in the $1 million Chinese tournament.
One behind going into the last day and played great, and it was like a real arm wrestle all day, and got to the stage halfway through the back nine where I actually got in the lead and was feeling really good about myself and obviously disappointed with the result in the end.
He backed up his performance in China with a solid display in the Perth International, where he finished in a tie for 19th. Now based in Sydney, Townsend has been commuting back and forth this week for the Merewether and Shortland Pro-Ams.
It's just nice to be home, so if I can drive home, I will, just to reacquaint myself with my wife.
While next week's qualifying for the One Asia Tour is his immediate goal, he's also focused on the Australian summer.
I got the Australian Masters and then the Australian Open and PGA later in the year, so it's pretty busy from now on in.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.